The gore of the last 100 pages was top tier. I signed up for this class specifically so I would have an excuse to read this book. Shit got crazy. Something happened that I am definitely not going to spoil, but that absolutely brought the stakes of the entire novel up by like 1,000%. I wish I could tell you what happens at the end of this fucking book. My camera hates me. Oh boy. So it's day one of Summerween, and as is pretty typical with me, I'm already off of my TBR. I posted my Summerween TBR a couple of days before Summerween started, and life didn't let me start with any of those books. I instead finished The Marrow, Thieves by Sherry Dimmeline because I was supposed to have it done for school yesterday, and I did not, even though I got up at like 5:30 in the morning. So that needed to be finished today. It is speculative fiction, and it is horrifying if it's not strictly horror. So I feel like it still applies, which is why I'm putting it as the first one in this video. Ooh. Well, tabs falling out of there. The Marrow Thieves. This is about a dystopian future where indigenous people are hunted down and their bone marrow is extracted from them because there's been this plague of dreamlessness. The powers that be discover that indigenous people are still able to dream, and so the story centers around how they are being rounded up so that wealthy people can dream. So it's a first-person narration from our main character, Frenchie, who winds up working with this chosen family to just escape the recruiters who are coming after them, escape into the north, and try to figure out how to stop more residential schools from being built up, which is mostly what this book is commenting on, but it is commenting on a lot of things. I think this book was fucking fantastic. Genuinely, I don't think I will ever stop recommending this. It's such a rich text. It is so nuanced. Even though it was so difficult to read, I still wanted to pick it back up because it was written in a way that didn't make me feel totally melancholy. It still felt very hopeful, and I really appreciated that. I also appreciated a lot of the commentary on Canada itself, the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. This author, Sherry Dimmeline, wrote this specifically for Indigenous youth. She made the express decision to make it a young adult book and not an adult book because she was really impacted by the high suicide rates of Indigenous youth that she was interacting with, and so this book is written for them. It's not written for me. I can still love this book and acknowledge that I will not understand everything in here, and that's okay. But I think everyone should read this. I guess I should give it a star rating. I don't know, 4.5, 5 stars, something like that. It's just a really beautiful piece that I was really excited to read. Literally, I signed up for this class specifically so I would have an excuse to read this book because I have a habit of not reading difficult books when they're just for me because I don't want to be sad, and then they always wind up being my favorites. If you need an excuse to pick it up, consider this your excuse. I have a lot of errands to run today and I have a lot of work to do, so I don't actually think I'm going to be able to start on my Summerween TBR until tomorrow, but that's fine. We're going to start with, I did not prep for this, we're going to start with another Indigenous story, which is My Heart is a Chainsaw. I will see you when I start this book. It's day 2 of Summerween, and I've started My Heart is a Chainsaw. I'm about 50 pages in, and I find this writing so cinematic. It's so engaging. The opening slasher scene, I think, was really well done. I like Jade. She's a little bit annoying, but like in the most charming way. I definitely am not as literate in slashers as I thought I was because we're only 50 pages in and I've already lost a decent amount of references, but that's okay. If it's written this way the whole way through, I think this is gonna be just a wild ride. I think this is gonna be so much fun. I definitely wasn't expecting, I don't really want to spoil this, but there's something very triggering that happens within the first couple chapters. I definitely wasn't expecting that, although I feel like I should have been. This feels like it's gonna be a favorite. It is like all character all the way, and those are the books that I like, and I really enjoy like metafictional commentary like this, so this is going really well, and I'm really excited to pick it up at the end of today after I do some stuff. Yesterday while we were out on errands, we also picked up some like really summer-weeny flowers. They're like these very fun like dark red flowers. It's gonna be a busy week, but like I'm really excited to just read a bunch of fun, have an excuse to just read a bunch of fun horror books for myself. I'll check back in with you when I'm a little bit further along. So I wasn't planning on updating until it was dark out because I'm reading and the sun's going down. And it's very nice. I wasn't planning on updating until it was dark out, and I was like a good 2/3 through this. I'm pretty much exactly halfway, and there's a dog barking. I'm gonna close the door. I was gonna wait, but I'm about halfway through this, and I just feel like I gotta talk about it for a second, because I know a lot of people say that the beginning part is like really, really boring. And it was something I was aware of going into it, that like it starts off really slow, and it definitely does. Like, while my other update was like, oh my god, the writing is so good. Like, the writing is so good, but it's still really boring. And it's kind of a lot to be inside of Jade's head for this long, because she's just so hyper-fixated on slashers, and she's such a teenager that it's just a little bit much. And then all of a sudden, I realized that it wasn't boring anymore, and in fact was getting a little bit like head-fucky without telling what's going on. There's something really interesting that Stephen Graham Jones is doing here between the tension of us knowing that this is a slasher and the reader also knowing that if a girl sent us a weird cryptic letter about how we were the final girl and we have to save the town from a slasher, that absolutely nobody would believe her. And then it goes even further than that to really talk about stereotypes against Indigenous people that these characters are all projecting onto Jade because she's such a weirdo. I think it's really well done. I think it's pretty upsetting, which is definitely the point. Knowing that there are actual, like this is actually a slasher, and like we know for a fact that people are dying. The stakes are so high, and then this scene, this chapter that I just finished, just like ramped the stakes up even more, but in a real life capacity, and it's just a lot, and I absolutely respect what's happening in this book. I also realized I inadvertently read this and the Marrow Thieves back to back. They are very complementary texts, and I didn't plan this way, but I'm kind of glad it happened this way. Probably at this point I'll update you when I'm finished. I'm kind of hoping that I finish it like in the dark tonight. I think that will be perfect. I don't know if I said, but we're on day 3 of the readathon, and I've still technically only finished half of a book, and I have 3 other books to finish before Friday, and a really busy week ahead of me. This is gonna be a wild week. I hope you guys are having a good time. I will check back in with you when we're at some blood and gore. It is still technically day 3 of Summerween. Yeah, I have 17 minutes left, and I finished My Heart is a Chainsaw, and I can't really collect my thoughts into anything coherent right now, so I will update you in the morning, but I really think I liked it. I'll check back in with you tomorrow. My Heart is a Chainsaw. This book was fantastic. It was definitely boring there for a little bit. I think it set up the necessary character development for the final slasher climax to like really hit home, and it definitely did for me. The gore of the last 100 pages was top tier. I loved who the slasher turned out to be. I don't have a lot to say that I don't think I've already said, but this is probably a solid 4.25, 4.5 for me. I haven't felt the need to like binge a book like this in a long time, and once I got past that boring like hump at around page 150, I just flew through the end. I mean, I read 350 pages yesterday because I just absolutely had to find out what was going on, and I'm absolutely paying the price for it today. I'm exhausted and I still have a lot of work to do, but that's okay. I really like the writing style. I like how cinematic it is. I love how different authors can use horror in such a wide variety of ways to talk about social themes and social commentary. I think it's just such a beautiful thing that we can do, and I think it's why horror is one of my favorite genres. This is great.
it really makes me want to read Only the Good Indians, or The Only Good Indian, but I know that one has a lot of animal stuff in it, and I don't know if I'm gonna be able to deal with it. So if you guys have any thoughts, or if you've read it and you can give me like a gauge on if you think I can handle it, or if it's something that should be handled in order to experience the wonderfulness that is that book, please let me know in the comments, because that is something I'd really like to I would like to read it, especially after how much I really enjoyed this. Hello, happy day 4, 5 of Summerween. We're in the bathroom. I'm looking fabulous because we're gonna dye my hair a very fun Summerweeny color. Can you see it? Nope, my camera hates me. And while we do that, let's talk about Goddess of Filth. This is about a seance that goes wrong. These 5 Latina girls have a seance. One of them actually gets possessed. That is what I thought this book was about. What this book is actually about, that's not where that goes. What this book is actually about is about like reclaiming yourself and your body. From what I can gather, I'm about halfway through it. I'm listening to it as an audiobook. I was really not enjoying it in the beginning, honestly. I didn't really like the narrator. I still don't really love the narrator, but she's grown on me. And I wasn't sure where it was going. Halfway through, I think I can say pretty confidently that it's a story about reclaiming your body and reclaiming yourself. I don't think this is a spoiler, and I'm gonna tell you it anyways. The main girl doesn't get possessed in the way that you think she does. The girl who is getting possessed, the goddess like goes into her, but she asks permission to be able to do X, Y, and Z, all of these different things, with the help of, oh my god, I can't remember her name right now. It's not Francesca. I feel awful. I don't remember. Ignore me. It's been a really long day. She has a say in what they're doing, and it's very much like that movie with Carey Mulligan. Babe, what was that movie with Carey Mulligan called? The really good one? No, we watched it. The one where she like pretends to be drugged and like scares boys. What the hell is it called? This smells good. Promising Young Woman. Thank you! Okay, it's very Promising Young Woman. They call her the inhabitant because we don't know who she is. And the first thing that she does is her name is not Francesca, but that's the only name that's coming to my head right now. I'm so sorry. Her and not Francesca seduce a guy who's been like date raping girls, drugging girls at a club, and like eats his sin. Look, everything I expected sex-wise is all exactly what I expected. It's sexy, it's weird, the horror is partly the sex, but like it's also partly this girl who's been shamed for her entire life about sex, like reclaiming it for herself with the help of this goddess who may or may not be manipulating her. The jury's still out. I kind of hope she's not manipulating her. But that might be wishful thinking. But that's kind of where I'm hoping it's going. But it's honestly got like a really great, wow, that's already coloring. I'm honestly really enjoying it. It's not really horror in a way where it's scary. It's certainly icky at some points. I don't know, I feel confident about it. I don't know if I should, but I do. Look, I'm fabulous. You can see the messiness of at-home color. I continued reading Goddess of Filth actually while I was doing this. Shit got crazy. Something happened that I am definitely not gonna spoil, but that absolutely brought the stakes of the entire novel up by like 1,000%. I don't know what's going on. I only have an hour left, so I don't know. It's gonna be wild. Okay, ta-da, here is the new hair. You can't really see it in this light. Let me go outside. Okay, now I'm in the sun. I don't know if you can tell. It's like pretty purple. I can't tell on the screen, so it's a little witchier than I was expecting, but honestly, I'm not mad about it. I was getting really bored with the last color, so. Oh, do you want to go outside? Also, please ignore my bangs. Anyone who's grown out bangs before knows just like how much of a struggle it is. But I did finish Goddess of Filth, so let's talk about it. I really, really liked it. I'm gonna stand right here because now my cat has decided she wants to be outside. the feminist leaning, what the goddess represents, all of the different themes of friendship and love, what we want to do for the future, the racial commentary, the religious commentary. I just thought it was all really well done. It was really concise. I mean, that audiobook was like 3.5 hours long. I finished it so quickly. I just thought it was so good. It was so engaging. And then the final like climax of the book went somewhere I just absolutely did not expect. You are so loud outside. I just think it was so brilliantly done. I think the writing was so wonderful. I can't believe that she managed to pack so much into such a short piece. You think that the horror is the possession, but it's actually not. As all good horror books are, the horror is not the monster, the horror is the people. And there is one particular person that you will meet and you'll probably be like, oh, that's the horror. That was what Bella was talking about. And you'll be right, because that shit was crazy. It went crazy. I loved how it ended. I loved the finale. I really wasn't sure where it was going at the beginning. It took a minute for me to feel invested in the characters and adjust to V. Castro's writing style, but honestly, I'm really pleased with it. I'm definitely gonna pick up more of her books. I think the sex was like really fun. I liked the way that it was introduced. I liked how it wasn't just like reclaiming sex as like an idea, but it was actually part of the story. Like reclaiming sex and not feeling shame over your body was like a huge aspect of the story. I just really loved how it all came together. I think it's probably just like a solid 4.25 maybe, which is the third book on this list that's just been like fantastic. I really feel like I picked such a good selection of books. They all feel very complimentary, even though they're so different from one another. I'm just very happy. I'm very pleased. I'm very happy with how it's all going. I also discovered, like a dummy, the Brightlands is 500 pages long. How I did not notice that going into this, I don't know, but I have a feeling that will be the only other book that I finish in this vlog. I don't think I will be able to get to Ballad of Black Tom on top of classwork and work. So I think today is actually day 5 of Summerween, so that's my update for today. If I finish the Brightlands tonight, maybe I'll let you know. So I started the Brightlands this morning. I am 50 pages in. This is the story of a gay man who leaves his small town and then returns when his brother starts acting really weird. Joel returns to this conservative town, to Bentley, for the first time in like a decade, to try and help his brother out, but his brother disappears. I think the thing that strikes me the most about this so far is how blunt it is about its homophobia. It's centered in this very conservative town. It's a literary description of homophobia in a way that I haven't really read in this way in a long time. There's a lot of different perspectives going on. Clearly more than just Joel and Dylan are at stake here. This is a story of a town, of a community. It is not really the story of a couple of people experiencing an urban legend. It's like this whole town's experience of this urban legend, and how that seems to be wrapped up in homophobia. The way that it does multiple perspectives actually reminds me of Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky, which starts off with only a couple of perspectives, and then by the end we're juggling like 20 different people who are all experiencing the wildness that is this book. And this is doing something similar, but right from the beginning, where we're getting a lot of perspectives from people who are very homophobic, people who think they are not homophobic but definitely are, and then the main characters themselves. So I'm definitely intrigued. I think this has a really, really good start. I really want to know what's happening. I wasn't expecting it to feel like this book, but it bodes well because this was a top horror pick for me. Was that last year? I think it was the year before, but I really liked this when I read it a couple years ago. So if this is anything like this, I think it will be really interesting. I will of course keep you informed. I hope you're reading spooky things. I'll talk to you soon. Okay everyone, it's day 7 of Summerween. I did indeed finish The Brightlands by John Fram. This is definitely going to be the last book that I read for the vlog because she was way heftier than I expected. But I also did finish it like the last 300 pages in a single night, the same way I did with My Heart is a Chainsaw, because it got absolutely wild. I'm still not 100% sure what I would rate this. I think it
probably sits at a 4.25, which is pretty consistent across the board with the rest of the books I read this week. You will never, ever, ever guess in a million years what the Brightlands is. What kind of an urban legend it is. Oh boy. In my opinion, I think what the author was trying to do was create an entity that is internalized homophobia, because there's a lot of gay stuff going on in this conservative small town. Things that I really liked the different POVs, all of the different characters. I really liked how distinct all of the characters were. I'm a real sucker for good character work, and this absolutely had that. Everyone felt like their own person. Nobody spoke the same. I was never confused as to which character I was reading from. There was a moment early on, similar to My Heart is a Chainsaw, where I was like, why is this book so long? Like, I don't feel like anything's really happening. And then everything like blew up. So again, I think the world building and the setup is really essential for you really like fully understanding it later on, but there is a moment in it where I was like, oh my god, I don't care. Also, one of the main characters is a sheriff, and like, if you've been on this channel for any amount of time, you know I'm kind of wary about reading books that are any kind of propaganda. I don't like reading about police main characters. And you know what? The only way to do it right is to have the cop realize that all of the cops are corrupt. So that's good, I guess. But I mean, I knew that that was going against this book from the beginning, but it didn't really impact my enjoyment of it at all, which is great. Yeah, I wish I could tell you what happens at the end of this fucking book, because it's so crazy. I really do feel like this should not be a book that's binged. It's really heavy. There's a lot of really difficult stories about these boys. And if you are binging it all in a single night, as I did, once you hit that point in the book, you're just kind of like experiencing rough story after rough story. And I do think that this is written in a way where you should sit with it for a little bit and not just blow past it to the next one. It's a lot. I felt like very much emotionally exhausted at the end of reading this, and absolutely please check the trigger warnings. I do want to read you, I've started reading the acknowledgements of most of the books I read, because I find that sometimes authors use that place to have like a little mini author's note without like a distinct like author's note thing on it. And I am going to read you the last couple paragraphs of this because I think it really encapsulates the goal of this book, which I absolutely think he succeeded at. He says, "I must thank the many footballers in Central Texas who were kind enough to answer my questions about the sport and their private lives." Oh yeah, and if you're not like a big sports person, don't worry, there's like literally 2 football games in this, and based off of the reviews, I don't think they are well like written for like football wise, like sports, like how the game actually functions wise. So like it's not about football, like not really. It just happened to have football as like a background. "I withhold their names here because I remember very well the way guilt works by association in my old neck of the woods, and I would hate for any of these young men to be tainted for helping me write a novel that is, to put it mildly, concerned about the world in which they live. To the survivors whose stories informed characters like Deputy Grissom and the old boys, I'm sorry and thank you. I hope things have gotten better. You know who you are. And finally, to all the young people living anywhere there isn't room for you, whose stories have yet to be heard, whose lives will never be normal, I see you, you're loved." This is a debut novel. I think it absolutely succeeds at what the author was trying to do. I'll definitely read from him again in the future. I literally said this yesterday, but like, good horror books are not about the entity itself, but about how real people experience life. I think that is something horror has a really interesting capability of doing, is to reflect humanity, like the worst things of humanity back at you, but also reflect the best of humanity back at you in a way that is like speculative and big and bold and crazy. And you know what? I thought I had failed the challenge by not reading Ballad of Black Tom, which I promise I will read soon. I just simply don't have time to do it today. But I realized that this has orange and black on the cover, so I did not actually fail the challenge. I completed the challenge, and I read 4 books, even though one of them I hadn't planned on reading. Definitely check out my mid-year wrap-up if you haven't already to see what kind of books I've been reading over the last little bit. I hope you had a fabulous Summerween. I hope you're having a fabulous summer. Read some spooky things, and I will see you all very soon.